Chair Velto, since you were remote, would you like me to run the meeting from here?
I would, Commissioner Johnson, that would be great. I was going to ask that once we got going, but thanks for asking that in advance.
No problem. I'll let you go ahead and call the meeting to order, though, just because that would be procedurally correct.
Perfect. That sounds great. How's the snow and the weather treating you? It looks like it's pretty messy there.
Yeah, we're all here, so I think it's a good thing. So
Good.
no snow falling when I got here.
That's good. Do we have everybody in attendance? Are we get ready to go?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay, we'll now call to order the Wednesday, January 4th, 2023 Reno City Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
And I am not in the building, which means it makes a lot more sense for Commissioner Johnson to take the reins. He's indicated that he's willing to chair the meeting, and so long as there's no objection, I'd like to turn it over to him to chair the meeting.
We can do that. Thank you, Chair Velto. So our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, and with that, I will ask Commissioner Armstrong to lead us, please. All right, thank you very much. Heather, could we have roll call, please?
Alex Velto.
Here.
J.D. Draculich is absent. Harris Armstrong.
Present.
Peter Gower.
Here.
Mark Johnson.
Here.
Arthur Munoz.
Here.
Sylvia Villanueva.
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This item is for public comment on any action item or for any general public comment. Heather, I'll let you do your intro, and then you can let me know if we have any comment for this item.
Thank you. It should be noted for those in the audience that comments are to be addressed to the Planning Commission as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the Planning Commission agenda. Please note that the Planning Commission may not take action upon any matter not agendized for possible action on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name, and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment at this time, please raise your hand. Lastly, while in this room, please be respectful. Warnings will be issued by the presiding officer if there is disruptive behavior, and you will be asked to leave chambers if the behavior continues. We did receive correspondence that was general in nature, not associated with anything on tonight's agenda. I did not get any voicemails, and I don't have any request to speak forms.
Anyone in the audience like to make public comment on the general public comment item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to public hearings. I believe, I'm just going to verify, one of the items on the agenda has been pulled for this evening. Okay, so for those of you in the audience and watching on Zoom, item 4.4, which is the LDC 23-00016 TCA Leroy Street, has been postponed due to a noticing error. We will be hearing the other two TCA items this evening, however. So I just wanted to start with that, and we will go from there to item 4.1, case number LDC 23-00024, waste management fence. Do we have a presentation from the applicant, or is it just straight to the City of Reno? Okay.
Good evening. Ken Anderson, JK Architecture Engineering for the record. I have a very short presentation for this fencing, very basic. So as you see on this first slide, shows the existing fence for the waste management project on Commercial Row. There's various type fencing consisting of chain link to wood and with some small area of metal as well. This shows all the area of the fencing that's going to be removed on it based on the various colors there. The next slide shows actually what we're proposing to install in place of it. If we could go to the next slide. There you go. All the blue shows the proposed fencing as well as the various locations for gates to provide more safety for employees as well as to limit access around the project by outside persons that should not be going in. This fence is supposed to consist of, or is anticipated to consist of, open view metal, a lot sturdier than what is there right now. There have been problems with a lot of the fencing being vandalized and breaking in, and this fencing is anticipated to help prevent that from occurring in the future. And that's literally the entire presentation. Any questions?
Well, we'll hear a presentation from staff, and then we'll call you back if we have any questions. Thank you. Carter, good evening. It's been a while since we've seen you up here.
Yes, it has. Right. Good evening, Commissioners. Carter Williams, Assistant Planner for the record. Before you today is a major deviation request to increase the maximum fence height and to reduce setbacks to construct a fence across a project site. The site is the Waste Management East Commercial Transfer Facility. It's located in Ward 3 along East Commercial Row, bound by the railroad right-of-way to the north and Truckee River to the south. They presented the site. So it's a large site, so I only have a small sample, but I wanted to touch on a couple things from that sample. Excuse me. So that's the site. So the zoning for this site is mixed-use urban. Prior to 2006, the project site was located in industrial zoning, which accounts for the industrial uses predominant in the area. Currently, the zoning allows for a mix of high-intensity residential and commercial uses. The master plan designation for the site is urban mixed use. Here's a sample of the proposed site at the intersection of East Commercial Row and Sutro Street. The minimum setback of 10 feet is requested to integrate the fence with existing sidewalk infrastructure, site improvements, topographical features, and mature trees. Sutro Street is a minor arterial, and no sidewalk is currently on the west side. There is an existing landscape strip on the west that we're looking to protect. So condition number 6 maintains the 12-foot setback on the west side of Sutro Street to allow for a full width sidewalk to be constructed in the future. The proposed fence is to be 8 feet in height with a metal material and open view with manual and automatic gates throughout the site. The specific request is to increase the allowed fence height from 6 feet to 8 feet on the side and rear property lines, and reduces the front setback from 12 feet to 10 feet along the west side of, except along the west side of Sutro Street, which will remain that 12-foot. So the current code does not restrict the height of fencing placed outside of property setbacks. And it also allows for, along the side and rear property lines, a 6-foot fence plus a 3 feet of barbed wire. So this deviation provides more consistency across the site, protects natural features on site, and provides additional security, usually afforded without the need for barbed wire. This is a view of the existing conditions along East Commercial Row facing east. East Commercial Row facing west, and then Sutro Street facing south. And you can see the landscape strip where we're looking to push that fence out to allow for future construction of sidewalk. Here are the findings for a major deviation. Through staff's review and analysis, we've identified that or we believe that it meets the findings. And here's the recommended motion. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Carter. Appreciate that. So we'll bring it back to the Commission for disclosures. I'm going to start with those on Zoom. So Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. I am familiar with the site and received and read correspondence.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosure.
Commissioner Villanueva.
Commissioner Villanueva, for the record, I have read correspondence.
Commissioner Munoz, familiar with the site, read correspondence.
Commissioner Armstrong, same disclosures.
And Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures. Heather, do we have any public comment on this item?
We did receive correspondence for this item, no voicemails, and no request to speak forms right now.
Okay. Anyone in the audience wishing to make public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for any questions of the applicant or staff. Commissioner Villanueva.
I have a question for the planner. Hello. May you please bring up the visuals of the green screening that you have? The visuals of the screening with the trees and the,
Like the existing improvements on site?
yes. Okay, so I have a letter here from the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. I think we all received it. Have you communicated with them at all?
That comment came fairly late in the process, so staff wasn't able to identify the impacts of applying screening. This is the front of the site. What they're
Okay.
proposing is on the back of the site against the Truckee River
Okay.
to screen the facility from the trails along the Truckee River.
Do you have visuals of that?
Sorry,
Do you have any visuals of that,
I
of
do
the
not.
rear?
No, I do
No,
not.
okay. And is that going to be part of this projected deviation, the rear portion along?
Yes.
It will be?
yes.
Oh, okay. So does the applicant plan to include any greenery? Does it already have greenery, trees, green screen? They're asking for, let's see, evergreen screening. Is that, I mean, what, as a city, as a planner with the city, is that, I mean, something that was discussed with the
So,
applicant?
I would actually request the applicant come up and
Okay.
speak on that because there were concerns about putting
Sure. Yeah, okay.
those improvements back there.
I've been on vacation, so I just received this letter last night as well. But, there's currently already,
Can you please state your name?
oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to have you do that.
I'm Steve Bowler with Waste Management. And regarding that particular comment, there's already greenery, there's, the slopes. So we sit up higher than the river. So it's quite a bit higher than the river elevation. And depending on where you're at on that slope, there's already a lot of trees and greenery along it. One of the comments even that came back from planning at the initial stages is that we're in I think it's an AE zone flood rating, and wanting an open fence it doesn't happen very often, but theoretically during a 100-year storm, you could get flooding into that property. And the Planning Commission actually requested, that we had more open type fencing such that water could, come in and out of the property if we ever did get flooding up there. So I'm not really sure what we would do.
So the example we have up here with that fence, is it just going to be exactly like that but taller? Is that what?
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be and I think they both showed a picture of it. It's 8 feet high, and for added protection, it actually has the slanted pickets on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Additional questions? Commissioner Armstrong?
Thank you, Chair. With respect to comments from Conrad Sick of Vallejo Companies, I had a question for the city. Part of the public comment was he kind of invoked collaboration that was going on with the city with respect to this waste management project. Was this received, in a timely manner for you to consider it, or are you able to opine on his comments or requests?
It wasn't received timely enough to include it in this request, but we did have a meeting in collaboration with Public Works today, actually, and discussed potential applications that might be coming before this body in the future to address their comments. But there is a plan and collaboration between all three parties, the city, Vallejo, and Waste Management.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Munoz.
Thank you. This is going to be for the applicant. Just to clarify really quick, the backside that is along the Truckee River, that currently right now is chain link, correct?
Almost all, I think all of it's chain link. Yep.
Okay. All right. So this isn't going to change the visual aspect. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just going to
It'll improve
a
it,
better
actually.
looking
The
fence.
chain link's not very attractive.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any questions from those on the line? Okay. Carter, I have a question for you. So I appreciate the presentation and talking about the findings. I guess one question that I have, I'll probably be asking you this again on the next item. Can you kind of walk me through your process for the finding about granting the major deviation does not constitute a special privilege inconsistent with the limitations on other properties in the vicinity? And how staff was able to basically, you know, this is it's a setback for the fencing and a height for the fencing. So what is it about this particular project that makes that change acceptable as opposed to, say, another facility in the same area that may want to do that? So how are we from a staff standpoint making that finding?
So in this area, we have a lot of a mix of uses, a mix of industrial uses that have occurred from the previous zoning designations. And then we have new uses that are coming in that are residential or commercial in nature. This request, I think, brings us closer to a point where we have, it acknowledges those uses and the aesthetic that it brings. Well, like for instance, not providing barbed wire on these side yards or against the Truckee River. So I think that applying, this could be applied to other properties because of that mix of uses and to provide that cohesion between the past and the present.
So it's maybe less of not constituting a special privilege here as it is looking at this being perhaps an acceptable deviation on other similar projects so that, you know, we may see something like this again in the future because it makes sense for an industrial yard with security concerns in and around a mixed use development. Is that, am I kind of translating what you said correctly?
Yes,
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay, and I was just trying to understand because to me it was, it seems less about this site and more about the ideas behind what they're proposing to do. So I just wanted to understand that. So thank you. That was my question. If there's no additional questions, there'll be any discussion or motion. So Commissioner Munoz,
I'm ready to make a motion if there's no discussion.
not seeing anybody jump up.
In the case number LDC 23-00024 waste management fence. Based upon compliance with applicable findings, I move to approve the major deviation subject conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a motion. Looking for a second.
Commissioner Armstrong, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 4.2, case number LDC 23-00028, the Little Flower School setback deviation. A presentation from the applicant. Carter, I'll look to you. Do we have a presentation from staff? Applicant is online? Okay. So I'll let, okay. Thank you. After all this time, you'd think we'd still be used to this.
Commissioner Johnson.
John, I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you have a presentation that they need to pull up for you?
Yeah, I did. You know, there's that little pause when were introduced as a panelist, so I was waiting for it to pop up. Also with me is Mercedes De La Garza, the architect. And I believe Mike Quillisi is going to be with us as well. Would you like me to go first now that we've all arrived?
If you're the one going to do the presentation, as soon as we pull up your presentation, you can go ahead and start. Floor is yours, John.
Says the other participant is sharing. Can you see this now?
I think we're actually sharing it in chambers, are we? So you should be able to
Oh, you're
see
sharing it in chambers. Okay.
Yeah.
So I need to get rid of the share on my side. Is that what's going on?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you have it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair Johnson, Commissioners John Krompotek, here on behalf of the applicant, Little Flower School. This is a major deviation to reduce the building setback next to Casaza Street from 28 feet to 14 feet as proposed, and a change in the height to setback ratio. The staff controlling the slides. Yeah, I guess they have to. It's not working on my end. This is an exhibit that we put together. The principal and the reverend of Little Flower School and Church went door to door in that band of units. Given the nature of the request, that is a setback variance, we targeted that area, anybody that we thought would be possibly affected. And in short, you can see the addresses, the people that were engaged, and nobody expressed any concerns with the subject request for the setback variation. Next. Existing school. This is a depiction of the elevation and the mass of the existing school, 10-foot setback. And then the next slide, please, as proposed. So we have two measurements, actually three measurements that are important to this. One is that we're actually increasing it to 18.7 feet to the bulk of the building. There is the pop out over to the left of the screen near the entryway where that is 14.7 feet. And then you can see the height as proposed is 28 feet, 2 stories. Next. A different perspective on it. I think this is probably the exhibit that tells the whole story, because the 28-foot setback is required and the actual setback is 74 feet from the houses, the nearest houses across Casaza Way. That's the sum of the width of Casaza Street plus the 14-foot minimum plus 10 feet on the other side of the street. So it shows if you can look at the blue outline of the proposed building, you see the existing at 10 feet. The bulk of the new building at 18.7 feet. And then, as I mentioned in the one that showed the perspective, 14.7 feet for the minimum setback in the new structure. Next. Different perspective, but just trying to give the commission the whole scenario here. So going down Casaza Street, the school existing on the left, the existing residence that's closest to it on the right. You can see in this case, it's all side yards. That school, that element of the school, that building at its current location is 10 feet setback. And again, that's where we would have the minimum 14.7 feet with the increased height to 28 feet. Next. This is the height to setback ratio. Basically what we have here is a height of 28 feet 6 inches, a setback of 14 feet. You can see the property line referenced to the front of the building. It's just over 2. And so staff said the best way to deal with this is let's request this to a 3-to-1. It gives a little bit of flexibility in the issue, even though we're barely over 2:1 height to setback ratio. And I think this is the final slide. Next, please. Why are we requesting this? In the zoning code as it's written today, all yards located adjacent to residentially zoned property shall be set back 1 foot for every foot in building height. So 28 feet, right? 28-foot setback, 28-foot building height is proposed. We pasted in the section of code that relates specifically to a school. And in C, you can see that's same idea. Residentially zoned property, the setback 1 foot for every foot in building height. The interesting point here is that for whatever reason, the code, the definition of adjacent in the code and the setback gained from CASASA is not considered an adjacency. So in the real world, we have 74 foot of separation separated by a collector street and only recognized as 14 feet, 14.7 feet. And I would just share with Commission that the design of this has been going on and evolving since 2016. It was obviously under the old code at that time, measured setback, actual versus the defined setback has evolved from one code to the other. And there was something in that translation that got us to this point. And next slide. I'm not going to go into the findings, but this is not something that we see a lot of, at least I haven't. And so I'd be glad to touch on the findings 1 through 4 if the commission wants to hear from us on those. That's all I have. Thank you. Here for any questions. Also, Mercedes De La Garza. I don't see Mike Quillisi on, but I thought he was going to be here. And we're both here prepared for questions you might have. Thank you.
I'm here too, John.
Oh, there you are. Thank you, Michael. There's Michael. He's the big wheel with the Reno Diocese leading this effort.
Okay. Thank you, John. We'll get the presentation from staff and then get back to you with any questions.
Thank you very much.
Carter, welcome back.
Thank you. Hello again, Commissioners. Carter Williams, Assistant Planner for the record. Again, before you today is a major deviation. This is for school setbacks and compatibility setbacks from residentially zoned property adjacent to the site. This is an extension of a site plan review for an expansion of a school that was approved in October of 2022. And this application intends to comply with conditions associated with that case to implement the project. The property is located within Ward 3 at the northwest corner of Kitsky and Plum Lanes. The zoning is public facilities, and it is within a community center within the structure plan. The residential properties adjacent to the site are to the north and the east. The master plan land use designation is public quasi-public. So the request before you today, excuse me, but it's to change the school setback ratio from 1 foot of setback for each foot of building height to 1 foot of setback for every 2 feet of height. And also to change the residential compatibility step back ratio from 1 foot of setback for every 2 feet of building height to 1 foot of setback for every 3 feet of height. For the benefit of the public, for understanding, so this, I think I'll go over the difference between setback versus step back requirements. So setback requirements are the required distance between a building and the property line from the point where the building meets the ground. So from the ground up to the sky, that's the setback, we know that. But the step back requirements are the distance between the property line and the building, and the setback increases as the height increases. So as the building grows taller, this requirement encourages a step design. RMC currently requires a 1-to-1 height setback ratio. So for a proposed height of 28 feet, it would require a 28-foot setback. The applicant requests a 14-foot setback. For the compatibility requirement, this is being addressed because it accommodates the parapet wall. Since the parapet is 4 feet or less, it's not included in the height requirement. So the parapet would then encroach into that area that's identified with that line, the 3-to-1 line there, which would have been 2-to-1 before. So the proposed site, Casaza Drive acts as a substantial buffer between the proposed addition and the residentially zoned property to the north, and staff believes it is adequate to address the compatibility requirement. Here's the proposed building elevations along Casaza Drive, existing and proposed. And then the findings for a major deviation, which staff finds that this application as proposed meets all findings. And then the recommended motion. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Carter. Appreciate that. Once again, bring it back to the Commission for disclosures and start again online with Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower, familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto,
Commissioner Walton notice, or same disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva,
Familiar with the site.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures.
Commissioner Armstrong, same disclosures.
and Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures. Hit the button. Heather, do we have any public comment on this item?
We did not receive any correspondence for this item, no voicemails, and no request to speak forms.
Anyone in the audience wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, we'll close that and bring it back to the commission for questions. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant or staff? Seeing any, I guess it's up to me. I'll ask a question. I have to throw it out first. So Carter, two questions for you. The first one, I guess, ties back to what you were saying about that this had a site plan review and that this was a condition of the site plan review. And this may be one you can throw to Jason if you want to, but how does that happen? How do we basically approve something in a, one version of an entitlement process that requires a second entitlement process? How come it didn't occur at the same time?
So we conditionally approved it with that condition, understanding that with the applicant understanding that there was the potential for it to not be approved under the major deviation. And the applicant also has the opportunity to change their design so that they push the building back. There were other options, but
Okay, so all of the issues from a site plan review with respect to traffic and compatibility and all of those things, that's not what we're looking at tonight. That's all been sort of addressed.
that is correct.
So rather than having us look at the whole, item as a whole with the school expansion and the use and all that, the way that this has come through is that that's been determined at an administrative level, and now we're just looking at this major deviation that has continued through beyond that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We might be talking about that later. And then the second question is the same one about that I said before about how this is. How does staff justify that this does not provide special privilege for this particular project? The fact that we're giving a major deviation for a pretty substantial height to setback change.
So there's specific site conditions or off-site conditions rather along the street with the street that provide a buffer between the project and the residentially zoned property. If staff were to receive a separate application for another site that had similar conditions, that we would receive a similar result from a recommendation. So we do not believe that this is a particular. It may be particular based on the criteria of the site, but not particular based on the specific parcel or any other.
Okay, so again, it's kind of like the last time, the fact that there is a road that is a de facto setback, as the applicant pointed out, that's the main rationale for staff looking at this being an acceptable setback from the adjacent residential property.
That and it is also located within a community center, which are identified as being having similar uses. I think that this requirement may be more relevant if it were within a neighborhood. which we would probably not support as easily because of the conditions of the surrounding uses or the site.
So one of the overlays for this particular site is different than what would happen in another potentially similar situation.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Commissioners, any additional questions or discussion?
Commissioner Villanueva, I can make a motion, but I did just want to, before making a motion, thank you for asking those questions because it's important that we understand why this is set apart from others who may be applying for a similar application. And if that, if that application comes forward and is denied, at least we know, what sets this apart from maybe that potential application that comes in front of us in the future. So thank you. But for the motion, should have been more prepared. But Commissioner Villanueva, for the record, based upon Commissioner Villanueva, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the major deviation subject to conditions listed in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. I have a motion, looking for a second.
Commissioner Gower, I'll second, and I'll just make the comment that I appreciate this change in the process that the city of Reno adopted relative to the variance process that we had previously that allows these types of applications to move forward with a different set of findings and allows staff to look at it with a little bit different perspective. And I think it's a positive change as a result of the master plan and code update work that we did.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you all, commissioners.
With that, we will move on to the next item, 4.3, case number LDC 23-00015, TCA Mayan Multifamily. We'll start with a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Andy Derling with Wood Rogers representing the applicant. With me also tonight are representatives from Loomis & Associates, the engineer for the project, as well as Headway Transportation, the traffic engineer, and representatives from the applicant themselves. We have a few cases before you tonight, and so there is some overlap, and I'll explain kind of as I go here. The project sites are located on the south side of Interstate 80, right about at the Robb Drive interchange. It consists of two parcels that have a split master plan of suburban mixed use and single family. The suburban mixed use area is zoned general commercial. The single family master planned area is zoned SF3, 3 dwelling units per acre. The property is vacant and has had some historical grading that was associated with the previously approved special use permit for hillside development, cuts and fills, as well as disturbing a major drainage way. So that has all been approved previously and kind of building off of that for this new case. As I mentioned, we've submitted this in 3 parts, but really they're kind of interrelated projects. But what's important to note is all 3 of these can stand independently on their own. When you look through your staff report and look at the civil plans, each civil plan can stand on its own with the infrastructure necessary to serve each of the different phases. The reason that we broke them up is because we've got 3 individual independent residential product types. There's a multifamily project, which is this case in front of you, a townhome project, which is next, and a single-family detached project, which unfortunately had a noticing error, and you'll see at a future meeting. So just to kind of point out a little bit on this slide here, the green area is the multifamily area that we're talking about right now. The yellow is the townhomes, the blue is the single-family detached. Each of these plan sets has the backbone infrastructure, so it's the extension of Robb Drive and then a new collector roadway that terminates into a cul-de-sac, and then there's an emergency only, it's a gated access just for emergency vehicles down to Leroy. To the south of us is a small pocket of some unincorporated county area. Surrounding it to the south is City of Reno, kind of smaller lots, single family, vacant properties to the east of us that we'll talk about a little bit during my presentation. So this multifamily request is a conditional use permit for the development of more than 100 units and cuts greater than 20 feet. It's just about a 14-acre site. We've got 200 units, so about 14 units per acre. These are three-story walk-up, fairly traditional three-story walk-up apartment buildings. They do have garages on the first floor, single-car garages. So 391 parking spaces are provided, which includes the surface parking as well as the garage parking. About 6 acres of open space. A lot of that open space is down on the south side, which is slope area, and down to a storm drain outlet that was part of that original major drainage way disturbance. It also, as I mentioned, it includes the extension of Robb Drive and this new collector road. The intent is that the applicant would serve as kind of a master developer, similar to what you would see in maybe like a PUD or other situations. This has straight zoning, so we're using the city zoning. We're playing within the rules of the zoning code, so there was no need to have a land use action as part of this. It's really just the entitlements for the development itself. And as I mentioned, again, stressing, emergency access only from the terminus of that cul-de-sac to Leroy. Looking at the multifamily architecture, as I mentioned, 3-story walk-up. The garage is on the ground floor. They're 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. One of the issues that staff raised that we worked through with them was proximity to parks and access to parks. There's a condition in your staff report, and then some of these exhibits are attached as exhibits to that. The project is located within the radius of several parks. So the City of Reno's master plan establishes service territories or service radii of 1 to 2 miles for neighborhood or community parks. So what this exhibit demonstrates is that there are 3 existing community parks that are located north of this. They're all within that 1-mile service territory. So from the master plan standpoint, we meet that requirement. Also to the south, there's other recreational opportunities, several trailheads along the Truckee River Trail, and then Mayberry Park, which provides some access to public lands to the south as well. Additionally, on site, we will have the opportunity for some private amenities. The multifamily, which we're talking about in this case, kind of a traditional package of amenities, clubhouse and recreation facility here, possibly a pool, some other recreational areas that would be in some of these open areas to meet the requirements that are in code for multifamily projects. It has to have a tot lot and other certain types of specific amenities. In addition, looking at kind of the broader project, there's some opportunities for trails and other little pocket park amenities. Some of these may just be sort of benches and viewing areas, some may be more programmed, and that's really what that condition speaks to in your staff report. One of the other kind of major things that we really needed to address was the overall traffic considerations. Understanding that this side of Interstate 80 is all undeveloped. It's this little kind of insular niche here that consists of 4 property owners. So we have the TCA project owners who are before you tonight. The FJ Management, which is the former Flying J. It was proposed as a truck stop 15 years ago or so. They're not in the truck stop business anymore. That's not what we're talking about tonight. But that's not being contemplated at this time. The Heiser property, which is controlled by a local developer, and then a 4th developer over here. 3 of the 4 are currently working together and have been working on a comprehensive transportation and infrastructure plan to be able to cost share some of these improvements, as well as present to you more of a comprehensive plan for this area. And so Lauren Chilson with Headway Transportation is with us tonight. Prepared a comprehensive traffic study that looked at all these properties over here with estimated uses coming from those property owners in order to quantify, what the overall traffic impacts are. The TCA project itself generates a small fraction, quite frankly, just about 3,000 daily trips and between 200 and 240 peak hour trips that are generated just by the TCA projects. And then the proposed improvements would include modifications to the interchange, potential roundabout at the terminus of the extension of Robb Drive on the south side there. And so what staff asked is just kind of an understanding of kind of the phasing of these transportation improvements, which I would add, as per the conditions, requires us to seek approval from NDOT. We have informally started that process. We don't have an actual permit to submit yet because we don't have a project yet until this body approves it. And once we do, we would seek that formal approval. But we haven't informally met with them, submitted the traffic study to them, waiting for feedback so that we can start that schematic design of the interchange improvements. Lauren put this together with Headway. It's kind of a three-phased approach to be able to address the traffic capacity needs for the interchange. The first phase would really just be the roadway connection, so extension of the roadway, a stop, basically a stop sign on this extension, a new on-ramp left turn lane that would join on the current existing eastbound loop ramp. With these improvements, that garners a peak hour traffic volume capacity of about 1,500 trips. The existing trips that are in the area coming out of the McQueen area is about just over 1,000 trips. The TCA project at the PM was adding 240 trips, and so that leaves an additional capacity of about 14%, or 220 peak hour trips. Looking forward, now that was the minimum kind of requirements that really TCA needs to deal with. But looking forward with the other projects that are coming online and that comprehensive planning effort, kind of phases 2 and 3 are very similar. It really is the expansion of lanes and turn lanes over on the overpass itself, some additional turn lanes on the north terminal of Robb Drive there, some additional turn lanes on the south side here. All still remain in stop condition or yield conditions, and that gains an additional up to 310 peak hour trips, or about 19%. And the ultimate build out would include signalization of both the north and south sides of the interchange, and that allows for remaining capacity of about 61%, and that makes up that additional capacity that's necessary for those additional properties on the south side. So probably a TMI for you, but it's providing you with kind of a robust planning resource to say, look, we're not just looking at this as piecemeal. We're looking at this as part of a bigger development over time, and acknowledging the fact that comprehensive planning like this is very valuable for the community and the city. So with that, we are in agreement with staff's recommendations and the conditions, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andy. We'll get a presentation from staff, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions for you. Brooke, good evening.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Brooke Oswald. I'm a planner with Development Services. Happy New Year's to everyone. Just the applicant did, representative did a very nice job of going over the overall site and location. This is a unique site. Who have been to this site, it is isolated in many ways. We do have the connection down off Leroy, but because of the topography and the access, it really comes off that Robb Drive. We're looking at approximately 13.9 acres on this, and we do have those conditional use permits. That's for over the 200 units of those multifamily units. As we looked at this, staff analyzed the site and building design, looking at that grading, and then the availability of those public services and infrastructure. This is going on that Leroy point, just so we have a reference in the future as we look at maps. This is the Robb Drive interchange with I-80. Going on our Reimagine Reno, we're looking at suburban mixed use in this area. As the applicant's representative also stated, it does have a single family, which you see down at the left portion there, and then the top is a general commercial. On this particular site, the multifamily is located in that general commercial. There are several Reimagine Reno policies that this is in line with, that concurrency management. As was mentioned, staff has worked with, we do have another application in on the Heiser. I've been working with the other planner on that. I will be taking over that project and keeping a consistency with this. Additionally, we're looking at how those services will be provided, making sure that we're increasing that infrastructure, providing emergency access and other requirements as we move forward. This does start to provide that community connection. We will have pedestrian access that will come down on Leroy. It will be just emergency access down to Leroy and limited to that, but we will have pedestrian access. We do have open space and parks. We looked at that grading transition to that unincorporated county. As we come off the hillside there, we do have additional county properties down below, and looking at those transition as we go to those larger lots and how it will happen. And then once again, that network and connection. This site, as we'll kind of see, the site's really unique. It has sit vacant. Construction has taken place at different times, and we've looked for development. A lot of that was prior to 2007, and that development never happened. Grading had begun, stopped, and now there's a current grading permit on that site. As was mentioned, we did start from that initial grading from there, and then so this was analyzed from the finished grades that would be proposed from that previous, that they've already started work on. Once again, that Leroy, Rob Drive, and as staff looked at this, we really are looking. It was very important for us to look at the wholeality of this whole portion because it is unique in that it is isolated in many ways. The topography there drops off the back, and access becomes very hard and difficult. So you have the emergency off Leroy and really that concentration on Rob. So we wanted to make sure as we look at this in future development that we are consistent and have an understanding that this will be looked at as a whole in entirety. So these are the properties we're currently looking at right now. And then the Heiser project that we have in the LDC 003 is coming in, and we're looking those together. As we go look at the larger picture, there are the other related projects coming in. We will not be talking about the one to the left tonight, but the townhomes and the multifamily. As you can see through this, there's a series of trail and park networks that will all be open to the public and increase that availability, not to just this neighborhood, but those surrounding neighborhoods and that connectivity to those lower neighborhoods up to the Rob Drive and those areas up there through safe bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. Quickly just going over the project site, it does meet all the architectural standards requirements. We are seeing any additional of landscape buffering and other open space that provides that buffering to those surrounding properties. This is just looking at the project that we'll talk about next, which is the townhome project and that main backbone running along the top of the roadway there. As we look at those conditional use findings, staff could make all the findings and does recommend approval of the project. A number of comments have been received related to, not always specifically to this project, but the projects as a whole in the development of this area. A large portion of those were related to traffic. Other concerns are that compatibility and connectivity down to Leroy Drive. I think as we looked at this, that was very important to us that, once again, that access will be emergency only onto Leroy, really limiting any vehicular traffic or anything else coming through that area. So with that, I'll leave you with the motion, and once again, staff can make all findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate the presentation. I'll bring it back once again for disclosures, and once again, I'll start with Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. I spoke with the applicant's representative, received and read correspondence, and am familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosures.
Commissioner Villanueva, I've read correspondence and I visited the area. I didn't visit the actual site, but I visited around the area.
Commissioner Munoz, I am familiar with the site. I read and saw correspondence, and I spoke with the applicant's representative briefly.
Commissioner Armstrong, I met with the applicant's representative, and I've read and received emails.
Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures. Heather, do we have any public comment on this item?
We did receive correspondence for this item. I did not get any voicemails, and I don't have any requests to speak forms.
Anyone in the audience or on Zoom wishing to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for questions of the applicant or staff. Commissioner Villanueva.
Thank you. I have questions for the applicant. Hi, good evening. I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to understand the access. So currently, there's no access from 80, but the plan is that there will be access from 80?
Correct. For the record, Andy Derling with Wood Rogers. Rob Drive, you can sort of see in this exhibit, basically dead ends into the adjacent parcel, which is that FJ management parcel. There is an agreement between the two parties that access will be provided. So
What two parties? The
the TCA property owners and the Flying J property owners.
And
So this
NDOT?
parcel here,
Okay.
for
Okay.
the, not the NDOT access, but for the actual roadway network that would be provided. And Flying J actually signed an owner's affidavit as part of this application. So that would be an extension of Robb Drive to the south. Basically, all the way, this is just kind of shown schematically, but ultimately it will come to the south, probably to a roundabout, and then swing around to provide that access to these three projects.
Which part is the NDOT part?
NDOT would have control of access. Currently, their control of access ends right at the kind of at the property line, which is kind of typical. Then they have access management standards that extend past that into onto the city of. This will be a public street, City of Reno public street, like you would see in most subdivisions. And so that their NDOT's control of access extends into the site, and they can control kind of where driveways and things like that would be to the adjacent parcels. But we would have to go through, it's the condition 13, that would require us to go through that encroachment permit and right of access with NDOT.
What if NDOT denies? Which we have seen in the past with Invertite. NDOT has come back and denied despite a condition.
Sure. So Lauren Chilson's here, but we would have to go through that process. We can't actually go through that process. It's kind of a chicken or egg, right? We can't go through that process until we have an actual project. So we have to seek these approvals first, then go to NDOT, and that would happen prior to approval of any building permit, or in this case, it would be the building permit for the multifamily, or for the next project, the townhomes, it would be prior to the approval of the final map.
And
So-
what's the topography right there where that roadway access would be?
It's relatively flat. There's kind of a little berm that would have to be graded out, but it's relatively flat. Let me see if I can get a bigger picture of the kind of overall. This is a large plateau that sits more or less at kind of that grade of Robb Drive. There would have to be some grading, obviously, to make drainage and things like that work, but it's generally at that Robb Drive grade.
Okay. I have other questions, but I'll let others speak.
I think, why don't you just go ahead and continue with your
Okay.
questions? I know Commissioner Gower, I saw you raise your hand, so I'll go to you next, but I'll let you continue, Commissioner Villanueva.
Okay, so this is a different topic. So have you had communication with any of the neighbors in the area?
The neighbors to the east,
Just in general, the little community right there, because it is kind of a little community in and of itself. It's pretty set off from the highway and the.
it is, and there's quite a bit of topographic change. So the blue line is the property line that comes along the bottom here. This is a slope that comes down to this property, the subdivision below. So they sit quite a ways, the engineers are here, but 20, 30, 40, 50 feet below us or more. And so there's quite a bit of grade separation. So it is, as Brooke said, it's sort of an interesting area topographically and geographically because it sort of is isolated, right? It's this little plateau that really is oriented towards Interstate 80. Everything to the south is down the hill below us.
And so how is that going to impact the neighbors with lights? And I mean, especially since there is that height difference, I mean.
Sure.
And the people below are used to the dark skies, and then you're going to.
Yeah, so we would, city code requires that we have, dark skies lighting and things like that. So you would have down lighting. Some of this has been done by virtue of the zoning, and I'm getting ahead of myself because, the multifamily that we're talking about right now for this case, right, is well separated, both topographically and distance separation from any adjacent. So these are the adjacent lots. This is several hundred feet, both vertically and horizontally separated from it. But looking at the zoning, this is all zoned general commercial, so it could have even more intense uses on this, shopping centers, things like that. And then by virtue of the zoning, the far west side over here was zoned SF3, so three units per acre, which is relatively low single-family residential density, which is more in line with the adjacent properties to the kind of west of the overall landholding here.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gower?
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Andy, since you're up there, I have a question for you. Looking at finding under conditional use permit 6A that talks about nuisance from noise, dust, vibration, things like that. Can you talk to me a little bit about how this project would mitigate, or if there is a concern in the first place, particularly regarding potential nuisance of new residents of this community relative to noise and potentially vibration from Interstate 80.
Sure. So, yeah, so I think essentially, if I can maybe paraphrase, you're interested in noise of the future residents of this multifamily project from traffic on Interstate 80, if I can paraphrase. Is that fair?
Correct.
Yeah, so we do have some, some separation. There is the collector roadway. Most of the units we tried to, kind of locate south of that roadway. You do have the rec center there. Additionally, this is a kind of berm, if you will, that is between Interstate 80 and the collector roadway. So there is some kind of grade separation. So we looked at it internally. We didn't feel like because the topography was there, it really didn't make sense to have any type of sound walls or things like that. So there's some natural buffers that are sort of built in. They're in the NDOT right of way, so we feel pretty confident they're not going to get touched. They're not part of our grading, so that's our sort of rationale for why this is appropriate.
Thank you. And if I could, Commissioner Johnson, follow up with staff on that, and then I have another question for Brooke. Hi, Brooke. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gower.
Follow up on that question, just asking if staff looked at this particular issue in consideration relative to the finding, and just want to confirm that you agree with Andy's characterization of the topography and I guess lack of concern related to noise, vibration, potentially light illumination on the future residents of the project.
Yes, we did. We did have initial concerns, looked at that. We had discussions with the applicant on that and kind of went through the topography, that separation, the grade. Additionally, that is NDOT right away, that being there. We have the roadway and it being set back. We'll have, the landscape, architectural, taking out some of that sound as it moves through. Additionally, I think if we do see expansion of I-80 into that NDOT would look at that time of, if sound walls or other things were appropriate at this time. But as we looked at it at this point, we felt that it was it was adequate with distance and grade separations to provide that separation with light, glare, noise, and those other things that we would anticipate with I-80.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Brooke. Follow-up, well, not a follow-up, separate question. I'm looking at condition 12 and it has three, seems like fairly distinct parts to it related to access. And I was hoping, Brooke, if you could just kind of walk me through those three parts and the logic for that condition.
Yeah, so as we look at that, and we kind of put them in condition because they're bundled. They are separate conditions, but bundled in a way that we want to make sure we're meeting all three of them as we go through, or that we know they're connected as it goes through. So that first one, as you look at that, it's that control of access off Robb Drive. So we do have an owner affidavit came in from the Flying J. There's some access agreements already in place. We know that those agreements are happening between at least three of the parties out there on how that would go through. We've had staff has sat down with NDOT, had initial conversations with them. The Federal Highway, probably as this improvement happens, this will have to be expanded into any Federal Highway improvements or anything else that's happened. So that just really secures with for the city that we're making sure that all those agencies are addressed and going through. And as the applicant's representative noted, this is sort of the first process. They need to get approval so they can move forward and start to work with those agencies to find the proper ways. The next is just making sure we have a reciprocal access easement across those properties because they don't own the final property, and we want to make sure until we get a dedicated roadway that becomes city property or within a public ownership, we need to make sure that those residents have proper access and we don't have that shut off. The final is that each time everything's coming in, that we're just going to be seeing traffic reports. So we're keeping a consistent sort of understanding, update of where we are, where our triggers are, and what should be applied as those come in. Because we may see development coming in on the other side of this development, right, prior to these being built. So we really want to make sure that we're constantly keeping an update where the traffic are and what improvements are going to need to happen.
So, and appreciate that clarification. And to that last point, so as development evolves in this area, the intent of that third part of the condition is that you're taking into account, or the traffic engineer who's providing you the information is taking into account the additional traffic from a growth within the region. So the conditions or considerations for improvement could change going into the future.
That's correct. We could see, improvements happening on the other side that could impact the I-80 interchange. Additionally, we anticipate seeing future development in this basically general development area through other developers, and making sure that those are taken into consideration. Now, the traffic report we have now should be noted. They did put out some general ideas of what they felt the development potential were and use from that. But this way, we'll really know exactly at every point what impacts we're having and if any additional mitigation or anything is needed.
Okay, thanks, Brooke. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Additional questions? Commissioner Villanueva?
Thank you. Question for staff, please. This is my question's regarding also that development of the highway. Where does who pays for that? For if NDOT were to approve that type of development, the connection to the 80, where does that?
What
pays
we're
for that?
anticipating is that would be a cost sharing between the developers. Them looking at the agreement, their overall impacts, and a cost sharing to make sure those improvements are done.
Okay.
So that was in a conversation with NDOT, and NDOT was in that same light that would happen. And then whatever NDOT process has of their proportion of that and what would happen.
Okay.
Yep.
Additional questions? Brooke, I have a question.
Yes.
So I understand for this project, and I'll, I guess, be specific to the one that's before us. So the secondary access, and it was clear, and I think Commissioner Gower kind of touched on it a little bit, but as well as the presentation, the backbone roadway that basically provides access from Robb Drive all the way to the cul-de-sac, as well as the secondary emergency access only off of Leroy.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that for this project. And this is maybe germane to a project that came before us several months ago, and it touches on what's in between. And if I understand this correctly, the areas to the east of this, the properties that are being discussed here, will be accessed from Robb Drive, but they will also require a secondary access from a fire standpoint.
Correct.
Is there any thought that what's being provided off of Leroy would satisfy that requirement, or is it the fact that it's where it is, there would need to be a second? My concern is from a traffic standpoint, I do not want, there's enough issue with this potentially being an access, and it makes sense only for emergency, but if it becomes the emergency access for this entire area, that could be problematic. So from staff standpoint, is there any way that traffic or engineering would consider that an acceptable secondary access?
Yeah, so I had extensive meetings with our fire marshal on that, because that was one of our concerns too, as we saw the overall area develop out, that this was not going to be, had concerns what we would anticipate seeing, and through the fire marshal, and he was generally in agreement. And as we move forward, we'll have more information, but really if you extended Robb Drive, we're gonna need at least one emergency access on one side and one on the other. So they felt very comfortable if we could get two off that entire plateau, that would be sufficient. So as was mentioned, each of these has to stand individually. So the 200 will have their secondary access required. If the other two aren't built, they'll have to build all the way down and so forth, right? So anyone that comes in builds going to have to build out the entire backbone and infrastructure at that point.
Okay, and that was, and I, again, I understand it for this project.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to, we've had this discussion
Yes.
about the overall development. so
And,
just trying
and
to
that,
understand.
that staff had the exact same concern, and we are working on that and have worked with our fire marshal to make sure, and the other applicant is aware that that will be required.
Okay.
Yep.
And I appreciate that. And then I guess the other question, unrelated to that, but maybe going back to Commissioner Villanueva and Commissioner Gower talking about some of the issues with the adjacent parcels. So the parcel directly to the east of this unit that we're looking at now is also zoned general commercial. So even though we're putting in a residential use, there's not any kind of requirement, there wouldn't be a requirement for the development on the adjacent parcel for additional setbacks because they're both zoned general commercial.
Yep.
So was there any conversation about, I see the landscape plan, there's some setbacks there, there's something, but there's no conditions with respect to distance or separation from, not the north side from the freeway, but the east side for the unknown general
Yeah,
commercial.
the units. Now, and those two, the townhomes, we have a denser townhome product, approximately 200 units. We're seeing approximately 200 multifamily sort of within that. I think we're seeing they're very compatible uses in sort of their overall density. I think one of the biggest things we're seeing and was mentioned is really that parking, that multifamily. And that's where we start to see really a lot of those impacts, not screening and buffering for noise or something between them, but really the impacts that you see on the parking. We're well over parked within our multifamily from what's required, and that gave staff a lot more comfort to make sure that they were not impacting with parking or those neighborhoods. Additionally, I think there is kind of a beauty of tying those product types together and not creating this separation. I think where we
I'm going to back you. I'm not talking about the two that we're talking about tonight. I'm talking about the
the third one.
east.
Yes.
No, to the east of us.
Oh, east of us,
That's not
yes.
a part of this. So is there a requirement for any type of, or was there a discussion about any kind of separation or screening requirement? And I guess I'm asking that because they're both zone general commercial, so there wouldn't be a requirement on the next parcel to do anything for that.
I apologize. I didn't quite understand the question. Now I do. There isn't at this time, right? It is vacant land. We have the roadway going through. We're going to anticipate seeing future development coming in. We'd anticipate those cuts and fills are going to have to come in on that property too, just because of the general slope. So will be another discretionary review. At that time, once we know what is actually being proposed, then I think it's a much better time to really propose the correct screening and buffering that would be required between those uses if it was necessary.
Okay, but the way we're looking at it now, that requirement would fall on the future applicant rather than.
Correct. We'd anticipate more of a commercial use, and that would kind of fall on them to make sure that they are respecting the existing properties or that existing between that.
And if I could, Andy, just follow up with you on that, because obviously, there's been some broader discussions up there. Is there any concern from, this project? I think I appreciated the answer about concern about to the north, but with the relatively unknown, at least from our standpoint, of what could happen east of this, are you comfortable that the plan that you have in place would satisfy any future separations or requirements between those two parcels?
Sure. Andy Derling for the record. No, there wasn't a concern. We actually have a little bit bigger setback on our side. It's anticipated there's probably going to be some slope area on the other side. It could be additional multifamily to the east of us, which would be very complementary, obviously, like kind uses. Even, when you look around town, there's tons of examples of multifamily next to shopping centers. That's not, inappropriate by any means. So we're kind of comfortable with the mix of uses that are out there that it would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Commissioners, additional questions? Any discussion? Commissioner Villanueva.
Thank you. So some of my concerns, before I take a vote, some of my concerns, first I'll point out, I understand this is general commercial and this is seeking multifamily. And given that this is general commercial, there could be some, pretty much anything, some more invasive uses. But there's a lot of other things it can be that would be less taxing on that infrastructure that's currently there. Because my concern is that NDOT doesn't approve. You guys come back, you say, we really have to use, I believe it's Leroy Street as the access. And we have seen that happen in the past and asked for the removal of the condition. So I'm concerned that, that's where we're going to be. And I understand that this is a chicken and the egg situation. But I'm looking at the findings, and infrastructure is one of the findings. Generally, I'm very pro multi-development or multifamily. I just don't think that this is an appropriate place for it, given the infrastructure, and that we don't know what NDOT's going to do. In Leroy, I was just there this evening before I came here, and it's a very small street. It goes right under the highway. Mayan goes right under the highway into Leroy. I just don't think it's safe. And additionally, there's a lot of things here that I can't make the findings for. The lack of public transit is also a concern. And what else? The grading, slope failure. So that's kind of where I am. That's what I'm thinking right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional comments? Commissioner Velto.
So I feel like we oftentimes see very similar projects where there needs to be some interaction with NDOT or some sort of infrastructure, and constantly go through this process where unless we build something or have plans to build and start the process whereby they can start communicating with NDOT with something feasible, we never end up having the roads improved or have the infrastructure improved. So I think these conditions are actually fairly extensive, and it creates a framework for them to interact successfully with NDOT. And in the event that they're unable to have those conditions become effective, then the project won't happen. But I'm satisfied with the conditions as they're written, especially as it relates to the roads and the infrastructure. And beyond that, I think this is the type of project that makes sense in the area. It's consistent with our master plan, and I think this is an all-around good project and something that I'll be able to support.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional comments? Commissioner Gower.
Commissioner Gower. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I'll just chime in as well and say I appreciate Commissioner Villanueva's comments about the infrastructure, particularly share your concern about the transit availability. I think that's a programmatic issue that we have as a region, is access to multimodal transportation options. And I'd love to see transit access the site. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. My concerns were related to access and traffic. We saw those comments in public comment, or concerns in public comments. I do feel actually that there is infrastructure to support this type of development at this site. There is an on-ramp there. It seems like a logical extension of Robb Drive to provide that access. I was concerned also about encroachment upon that community to the southwest there, but I think it's conditioned well with just emergency access onto Leroy. That's going to be very infrequent vehicle traffic, and it doubles as a really solid pedestrian access for people who are interested in coming down from this development down towards the river. I also appreciated that the applicant is not only looking at their project and the phases of their project and staff as well, but coordinating with the other landowners and developers in this area, taking a comprehensive look at it. I think that's really important. It's something that has been missing from other projects and proposals. Having that comprehensive look at traffic, for example, for this project and others in the area, it's just it's so informative for knowing what those cumulative impacts of development in this area are looking like. And just lastly, I'll note that I think this is an infill project, and it meets a fundamental master plan finding for infill development in our region. So I'm wholeheartedly in support of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Additional comments? I'll throw mine out there. And again, I appreciate where you're coming from, Commissioner Villanueva, but I think kind of where I was going with my line of questioning is that, this is, it is a site that needs to be accessed from Robb Drive. I think the Robb Drive overpass is sized appropriately for additional traffic. I think it's always kind of looked like a road to nowhere. You kind of go across and you have to turn right and take a loop to get anywhere, and there's that sort of area over there. And you know, I you know, hearing that could have been a Flying J truck stop, I think that just kind of sends some shivers down the spine in terms of some of the concerns that you've raised. And I think from a traffic standpoint, the level of development that's required on here, I think, would be met by what's happening at that interchange. And as Commissioner Gower pointed out, there was some really helpful visuals and discussion about how this can accommodate additional growth in that area. I understand your concerns about the, you know, proximity, but really there's a horizontal proximity, but there's also sort of a vertical separation that makes a lot of that, in my mind, go away. I mean, this is, as was said several times tonight, kind of an island sitting up there on almost a bluff above what's happening at the river below. So I think it's a, you know, challenge from a public transit standpoint, but it is a good spot for higher intensity development, meeting what's going, what the zoning is and what the intent is of the master plan. So if there's no further discussion, I'll look for a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Velter, I'll make a motion.
Oh, you can do that because you're not actually acting chair tonight.
Perfect. Sorry, I'm just pulling the motion. In the matter of case number LDC 23-00015, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the conditional use permit subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make all the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner Velto. I have a motion. Looking for a second.
Commissioner Armstrong, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Okay. Heather, can we get a roll call vote on this, please?
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Peter Gower,
Yes.
Arthur Munoz,
Yes.
Sylvia Villanueva.
No, and I do want to add that my position is mainly because that NDOT connection has not been approved. I understand, again, this is a chicken egg situation. My position may be different, or probably would be different if we knew that that was going to be approved for sure. Because my concern, again, is that they're going to come back, ask to remove the condition, and then use Leroy as a major thoroughfare, well, a major street to access that. If something changes on the road, my position would probably change, but I'm a no, thank you.
Alex Felto,
Yes.
Harris Armstrong,
Yes.
5-1.
Thank you. Motion passes. And with that, we will move on to the next item. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, item 4.4, LDC 16, the TCA Leroy Street has been postponed. So we will move on to item 4.5, case number LDC 23-00017, TCA Townhomes. Andy, welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be back. For the record, Andy Dearling with Wood Rogers, representing the applicant for the TCA Properties Townhome Project. Not to be Captain Redundant, I do have to go through some of this just for the record, but would respectfully request for the Secretary to acknowledge that in the record, the past presentation and discussion relative to the general development characteristics of the area are applicable to this as well. So again, this is on the south side of Interstate 80 at Robb Drive, 2 parcels, 35 acres about total, mixed master plan of suburban mixed use and single family, mixed zoning of general commercial and single family, 3 units per acre. It's vacant land with historical grading associated with a previous SUP. The project that we're talking about right now is a townhome project, which is in the center portion of the screen here on this exhibit in the yellow. Again, all of the infrastructure associated with the roadway, the extension of Robb Drive, the new collector roadway to the terminus at a local street and cul-de-sac with the emergency access would all be constructed as part of any initial phase because one, the secondary access has to go out to the west. Also, that's our sewer connection, so all of that kind of has to be built as one. The single-family attached, or the townhome project, is a tentative map for 202 units. Conditional use permit for development of more than 100 units. Again, so similar to the previous request, anytime you go over 100 units in the GC zoning, it requires a conditional use permit, as well as cuts. 14-acre site, 202 units yields about 14 dwelling units per acre. 440 parking spaces are provided, 404 required. The majority of those spaces are provided in two-car garages that are part of each of these units. So these would more than likely be for sale units. Each unit has a two-car garage. There's sort of two townhome product types here in the kind of northeastern portion here. This is an alley load project. So you would enter your garage from an alley side. Your front door is on the opposite side of the house. The front door is either open to kind of a tree-lined street or to a paseo in the center of some of these areas. The other product type is more of a traditional front-loaded two-car garage and front door, both entering to the street with kind of a little patio space behind it. The townhome architecture, this is the alley load project or product, 3 and 4 bedroom units, 2-story, and the front load, more traditional kind of townhome, again, 2-story, 3 and 4 bedroom units. We talked on the last one about proximity to existing parks that meet the City of Reno's Reimagine Reno standards, as well as proximity to some really great trailheads in the Truckee River Trail, with access, pedestrian-only access that would go down to Leroy Street and ultimately can kind of lead folks down to that Duroc Star or Mayberry Park trailheads that are down on the kind of south side of 4th Street there. Also, we have on-site trails and amenities that would be programmed as part of this and conditioned as part of the conditions of approval for the approval of this project. Again, the overall traffic considerations, maybe just to clarify, understanding the dialogue on the previous case, the right of access has already been obtained. So that has been purchased. That's an actual right that is purchased from NDOT. Flying J and TCA are party to that and have access to Interstate 80. The only question is mitigating the traffic impacts, and that comes with these projects. To address Commissioner Villanueva's comments on the previous case, the access is granted. There is access to the site for the extension of Robb Drive. Really what we're talking about is what it looks like and kind of, how it needs to mitigate the traffic impacts, which is tied to a project which is, based on unit counts and things like that. So there is, I mentioned chicken or egg. There is some finite sort of pieces to this that are known at this time. So sorry if I didn't articulate that well on the previous one. So this has been comprehensively planned from a traffic perspective and infrastructure perspective. That extension of Robb Drive, again, would come to a roundabout that would provide access to the east and west. Again, mentioning the phasing of these improvements, TCA's portion, which they will build and they will fund, is relatively minimal, to be honest, and provides the extension of Robb Drive, the roadway infrastructure. It would still be a stop condition. There would be some minor on-ramp modifications that would need to happen, again, just to address this new development for this arterial roadway that really stubs into the property here. And then looking forward in future phases for the additional development that could occur on the south side to build in that additional capacity, additional turn lanes and modifications to the on and off ramps, both on the north and south side, ultimately resulting in a pair of signals that would need to be installed, again, at the developer's expense, which they are working on a cost share for the private parties that would benefit from that on the south side here. So with that, we are in agreement with staff's recommendations and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andy.
Once again, Commission, Brooke Oswald, Associate Planner. I'd like to also reiterate many of the discussions, comments that we had in the prior will apply to this, and I'll try to touch on those as we move forward. Once again, we're looking at approximately 14-acre site. On this one's a little bit different. These will be a for-sale product, a single-family attached product that does require a tentative map, so those can be individually parceled and sold. Additionally, we have conditional use permit for over that 200 single-family attached, sorry, not detached, should be attached. And then we have over those 100 units and then the cuts and fills. We did look at that site design and building design related to this, the grading, and once again, the public services and infrastructure. Coming a little bit closer on the site. As you can see, another unique thing, the isolation of this site, also you can see that it is highly disturbed site. And so there are some both environmental advantages and other advantages to going in and seeking development on this site. Just for reference, Leroy Street and the Robb Drive interchange. Would like to confirm that access has been secured by the Flying J property for well over 15 years at this point, and has been contemplated in our conversations with development. NDOT has always contemplated that development would happen at this location in the future. Still within that general commercial zoning, very similar Reimagine Reno's, that concurrency of those management systems coming in, neighborhood connections, open space grading, transition to that unincorporated counted open space, and then those connections. Additionally, I think there are value in Commissioner Gower's comment that this would be looked at as infill in a way. We usually look at that infill within this McCarran loop. This is just outside of that, coming to that next exit outside of McCarran. The larger Reimagine plan is that suburban mixed use. Once again, we looked at this as a whole in entirety. We're trying to basically get an understanding of this whole plateau area. It is a very unique development area. It's very isolated in many ways, but it has a lot of opportunities for development. We have the associated case. We'd anticipate you'll see that coming forward in the future. That'll be a zoning map amendment and a master plan amendment. Something unique about that, I'll just add now, outside of this case, we'd look for a specific plan district on that, so it's going to be a little unique. And very specific because this area has some of those unique constraints. Once again, Leroy Street, our access secured off of Robb. These will all stand independently. We're seeing the townhome projects, the yellow and the orange in the middle at this time. We just discussed the multifamily. We do anticipate the 16 single-family homes down towards the other side. We anticipate that we will be hearing that at the February 1st, just so the public is very aware. That will be renoticed and reposted so that everyone will be aware on that. Once again, that access is emergency only onto Leroy and will be gated per our conditions. We additionally will see pedestrian access going up through there and connecting to the pedestrian walkway system and then also the trail system. Just to oversight, a couple different product types. We're seeing a little bit more of this as this is coming through these tighter developments. This one has some nice feature and uniqueness, the open space and views out the back, but also we're seeing those paseos, which is a little different, where it's really putting that front yard on the front side and creating those central units with kind of what would be considered a backloaded garage. Once again, that backbone infrastructure connecting to the multifamily and then down to the project that we'll see in a couple weeks. Staff could make all the findings and does recommend approval of the project. I'll leave you with.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yep.
Once again, back to the Commission for Disclosures. Commissioner Gower, one more time.
Thank you. I received and read correspondence, spoke with the applicant's representative, and am familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosure.
Commissioner Villanueva, I read emails and I visited the surrounding area.
Commissioner Munoz, I'm familiar with the area, briefly spoke with the applicant's representative and read correspondence.
Commissioner Armstrong, I spoke with the applicant's representative and I read and received emails.
Commissioner Johnson, same disclosures. Heather, do we have any public comment on this item?
We did receive correspondence for this item. I did not get any voicemails, and I don't have any requests to speak forms.
Anyone in the audience wishing to make public comment? If you'd like to make public comment, you can come up, you can fill out a form with Heather after you're done. So, and just state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is John Forkus, and I'm a resident of one of the communities to the south of the proposed development. And I'm going to have to side with Commissioner Villanueva. What you've done is approved the first phase of the development, guaranteeing that, or assuming that the Leroy Street will become emergency access. Leroy is a small street. It has no lights, no sidewalks. We just had a power outage that lasted 30 hours last weekend. Also, it empties out onto Mesa Park, another very small street, which empties off into 4th Street, and that road is already too busy. Right now, the houses that are, I know we haven't, the subject wasn't to talk about Leroy, but we can't do the other projects without talking about Leroy. The houses on Leroy, they're talking about the new ones being zoned for 3 houses per acre. The problem is, none of the houses existing on Leroy, either on the Mesa Park side or on the east or the west side, are 3 houses per acre. I think they're an house per acre and a half. So the houses that are being proposed to be on Leroy, they shouldn't be that much density. That would increase the volume anyway. Also, there's no foot traffic coming from the north now, and there would be. And where's it gonna go? If it comes down Leroy, there really is nowhere to go. You're not walking to the river from there. You're not walking down that windy, dangerous actually, Mesa Park Road, where a car just spun off and went off to the side of the road in the snow the other day. Again, Leroy's small, 25 mile an hour, or that Leroy, but Mesa Park, windy. So there's nowhere really to go for someone who wants to come up, down, unless it's just to walk along Leroy, or to go east and walk through the residential neighborhoods now, which are currently very quiet. Also, it's going to be emergency access road only, or supposed to be. There already is an emergency access road, and that one is on the east end of Leroy. The problem with emergency access roads is nobody reading a map in their car knows the emergency access. They're all taking that road, thinking it goes through, and it doesn't. So we already have people coming up and trying to get through on Leroy now through the one gated access. Now we'll have 2. And I don't know what the impact will be from people walking down from, I mean, you can get all the way over to the shopping centers at Robb Drive and down. I'm not sure what that impact will all be. Also, they talked about no need for a sound wall. I can say from living there, especially the further you go east, you get quite a bit of road noise. So I'm not sure how people on top of the hill close to the road won't have road noise. What else we got here? Those are the main things. Anyway, I can't see you proceeding with a project dependent on having an access road where there shouldn't be an access road, or probably wouldn't be advised to be an access road. There probably needs to be another emergency route posted somewhere else, and I'm not sure how you do that, but I'm going to side with Commissioner Villanueva. Thank you.
Additional requests to speak? Seeing none, we will close public comment and bring it back for discussion on this item. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Munoz.
Thank you. I think this is going to be for the developer first, and then we'll go to Brooke. I have some concerns with the way the layout is set for the property line here and the property that's going to be to the furthest north off of Leroy. Do you know what the distance is between the proposed building there and the existing building just to the south?
So on the north, this side?
No, down the bottom corner,
This
right
side.
there. Yeah, so right there, that very last building
Yep.
there, and then that property right below it. I know it does sit below it. What is the distance from those buildings?
So we actually, for the record, Andy Derling with Wood Rogers, if I can get the overhead, keep you on your toes here.
We don't get too many overhead requests anymore.
Going old school. We prepared a cross-section. This was actually something that came up from staff. There is quite a bit of vertical separation there. And so if we can zoom out just a bit. Well, that actually shows it quite well, actually. So this is the existing home there, which is this home that the existing home to the south. It sits quite a bit below, where's my pen here? Sits quite a bit below the property line. So the property line is indicated here. So it sits below. If you look at that existing, there's a large retaining wall behind this house. And so he's got quite a bit of, his house is kind of dug into the hill. So that's kind of reflective here. If you look at the dashed line, that's the existing ground, okay? And it climbs very quickly. So this new townhome building, which is this one here, is being cut in. And so there will be this little ridge here. And so the line of sight, you can almost, kind of follow the existing grade here. And so the line of sight is really cut off at the top of the first story. So really you only see the second story of the house. Again, these are townhomes, right? So they're two-story townhomes. They are of a residential scale that's equivalent to kind of single-family homes with two-story. So because of that physical separation, the vertical separation, staff felt it was appropriate. We felt it was appropriate, and that was the justification for it.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that. And then the second question I had is, what is going to be the grade for the emergency access road from Leroy down?
I might have to refer to, if you want actual grades, I'll have the engineer come up and talk about it. But generally speaking, I mean, there are requirements that Reno Fire has in they've adopted International Fire Code, so it is a codified requirement. It has maximum grades that are on there. So there would be, we are meeting that with that.
Okay, so you're confident, and it's going forward that this will be at grade?
It meets code.
Perfect. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, additional questions? Commissioner Villanueva.
I have a question for the applicant. So when you spoke just now on this application, you said it has been approved. I'm trying to figure out the NDOT situation.
Sure. So I did a poor job of articulating that, I think, the first time, and maybe added more confusion. So sorry, for the record, Andy Durling. So there's a multi-stage process in order to gain access to a freeway like this. As was mentioned, I think, Commissioner Johnson on the previous case, right? Robb Drive is an arterial roadway that has been stubbed into the adjacent property, right? It's really looks like it is intended to be extended in the future.
It goes in a loop. Yeah, I was just there.
Yep.
It goes in a loop and then it cuts off into, well, it looks like it goes into the mountain, but then it goes into a loop.
It just stops right there. So what NDOT, in order to garner access to the interstate, you have to purchase that. It's kind of like purchasing right of way, but it's right of access. You're purchasing right of access. That's already occurred. Flying J and TCA have partnered and purchased that access, spent a considerable amount of money to gain access to the freeway. So access is granted, okay? The only thing now is the fundamentals of what type of intensity of development, what type of intensity of roadway is necessary to connect to that right of access, to connect to the NDOT interchange there. So that's where we need these projects in order to come up with and quantify the traffic impacts that would then justify or be the basis of design for those roadway and traffic and intersection improvements. So that's where it's sort of a two-step process. Access is already granted. Now we're really just working with NDOT on the appropriate traffic mitigations that are necessary due to the development that's coming in.
And who develops that access way? Is that the developer, or does NDOT come in after paid by the developer and create that access way?
No, it's permitted through NDOT, so they are the permitting authority.
Okay.
And it is paid for by the developer, built by the developer, with NDOT essentially looking over their shoulder the whole time to make sure it's done to their standards. They're very particular. It's a lengthy process to go through that approval with NDOT, and so it is NDOT's not funding it, NDOT's not building it. It's built and funded by the developers, approved by NDOT.
Okay, and so for this request, this is a 16-lot, single-family residential detached subdivision. This
Sorry,
is
that item was pulled. Yeah, so
okay.
this is a 202 lot townhomes.
Sorry, I forgot to switch. This is what happens when you use hard copies.
Analog.
Excuse me. Okay, so this is 202 lot, single-family residential, right?
Single family attached, so townhomes.
Attached, okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner, additional questions? Commissioner Gower.
Thank you, Chairman Johnson. I just want to ask staff to respond to the public comment and the commentary about access to Leroy Street. And if there is ever a scenario where we would have traffic, just normal access traffic going through that roadway that's being proposed.
Yes, thank you for the question. And I'd like to, that it was a concern of ours in looking at that. We actually looked at one time and talked with the applicant of what that would look like to open that, and saw, you know, the impacts not only up on Robb Drive increased tremendously, but those impacts to that existing neighborhood. So it was a concern through this whole process. The applicant came forward initially always with the gated access, knowing that they wanted to really be cognizant of that neighborhood. That will be gated. There is a condition related to that, so we know it's going to be gated. It has to be gated per the discretion of our fire department and the type of gate and lock and what they want on that. So that is secured within that condition. It's one of the conditions of approval. So what there would be no through traffic going through there. What we would see, we'd anticipate, you know, a fire access so that they would be able to go through that gate and service up through that way if there was another issue. Additionally, to move traffic or evacuation out in that time as deemed necessary by the fire department. So other than those sort of situations, there would be no vehicular traffic. As was mentioned, we do have another gate down just to the the south of this, down the roadway there, that is gated, locked, and sort of isolates this that unique larger lot properties, some of within the county. It really is isolated from traffic, and Leroy really just serves those homes that are along there.
Thanks, Brooke, for that clarification. And just to confirm, that's in perpetuity. If
That's in perpetuity. That would have to be maintained. I mean, they would have to come back, you know, to change the condition or anything else. So it would have to come back. I do not see in any way that staff would be supportive, and the infrastructure and improvements to Leroy would have to happen to accommodate any additional traffic, right? And those improvements, that's a county road, so there's other sort of, you know, other tricks there too, right? The county's also involved in that, and so any approval would need to go through them. So we don't anticipate, and that would be perpetuity, that we would see that gated and secured, and all access being off of the Robb Drive interchange.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Brooke. Commissioner Villanueva.
I apologize. I'm just trying to really understand the project. So at the beginning of this application, you said that this lot or this area it's not undeveloped. There was something that was done to it. The condition is shifted from the natural state. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What's going on with?
Sure. Yeah, it was outlined in the staff report, and I don't have the actual building permits, but we had previous approvals on this that for development. Those were coming, you know, prior back in that 2007. Obviously, those weren't done. But what we've seen is that preparation of the grading. In that, we saw some grading permits being issued. Additionally, there's a major drainage way. That's already, so we did the impact of major drainage or disturbance of major drainage way was done at that time. I think Andy outlined on the previous one, you can see where the outflow, that's already been built and pushed out, and that disturbance has already, you know, they've already done the construction for that. So what we have now is kind of a site that started construction and has kind of bumped along, and, you know, I think now we've seen ourselves in a market cycle, and and is ready for development again. And so we have a disturbed site.
Disturbed, that was the word that was.
Disturbed, yeah, and that's more by the grading. We've seen with that previous, we've seen them start to do some of those grading efforts and stuff like that. So one of the things advantages is starting to actually develop the site, right? That has been disturbed and is not in a natural form anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? Or a motion? Commissioner Munoz.
Thank you. Commissioner Munoz, for the record, ready to make a motion. On the case number of LDC 23-00017 TCA Townhomes. Based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the tentative map conditional use permit, subject to conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make the findings.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a motion.
Commissioner Gower, I'll second. I can make all the findings as well.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Heather, can we get another roll call vote, please?
Alex Felto,
Yes.
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Peter Gower,
Yes.
Arthur Munoz,
Yes.
Silvio Villanueva.
So I'm still a no on this. I feel like I could be convinced. I just don't think I'm there yet. So I'm still going to be a no on this. But if this comes back before us, my decision may change. I'm still a no, though. Thank you.
Harris Armstrong.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
Thank you very much. Good luck with your project, and I guess we will see you in a couple of meetings for the last part of this. Okay. Moving on to the agenda, that's the end of our public hearings. So next is the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. I'm sharing, so I don't have to do this one. I'm going to make somebody else do this report. Nobody's jumping up. Commissioner Gower's trying to remember what was on the agenda.
I'm pulling up the website real quick, Commissioner Johnson.
I already pulled it up just because I knew it was going to come back. We did have a meeting on December 22nd, the day after the last Regional Planning Commission meeting, or local Reno Planning meeting. Two items on the agenda. One was a conformance review of the Regional Water Management Plan. And then the other item was a Washoe County Master Plan Amendment for a small property, actually right at Lemon Drive and Buck Drive. It's an interesting area that's half City of Reno and half Washoe County. And so Washoe County was doing some suburban residential to commercial on a parcel that was basically commercial use. So that was the one item on the agenda. So,
Gentlemen,
with that,
please.
I will. Hey, gentlemen, can you please take it outside so we can finish our meeting? Just so we can hear what's going on. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, move on to item number 6, staff announcements. Jason.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Commissioners. Jason Garcia-LeBoux, Planning Manager for the record. Short list for me today. Excuse me.
That's good because you're losing your voice already.
Getting over a cold. There's 6 items planned for our next January 18th PC meeting. So those have been noticed. So we will have 6 items. So busy agenda. And then we're also, we have a annexation training and discussion item that's on the agenda. So busy meeting next go around, but looking forward to the discussion. Just to follow up on tonight's items, I think tonight really is a good follow-up on our staff report training and the efforts that staff kind of go through when we're processing projects. We take a look at kind of what's going on in the area, and tonight's items, you saw us kind of say, hey, look, we see other applications in, we see other things going on, what can we do about it? So a lot of those conditions and a lot of the staff work and networking with other agencies and organizations like NDOT helped kind of bring that project to where it was. So when that other project or other projects come forward, you'll see that similar collaboration. So if there's any kind of questions or comments on the staff end or any future items, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Item number 7, Commissioners' suggestions for future agenda items. Seeing none. Item number 8, public comment. Heather, do we have any requests to speak forms? Okay.
Commissioner Chair, Commissioner
Commissioner
Chair, Commissioner Johnson. I do have just a request from staff. I noticed on some of these, they don't have the addresses. They have the APN, and sometimes I have to search the assessor's website, get the APN, and then, or type in the APN, then get the address so I can locate the site. If we can just have the addresses on the staff report, so it's easier for me, or maybe I missed it, maybe it had it, but I've noticed that a few times when I'm trying to locate these properties, they don't have the address.
We can try, we can try where need be. Sometimes we don't necessarily have an address or it might not be correct. For the noticing portion, that we have to actually distance from an intersection or something like that. But we can try where we can to include that or incorporate that into the staff report.
Yeah, I understand not all of them because there's a lot of vacant land.
Yeah.
But there's a few on here that definitely did have addresses available that they weren't listed, but, all right, thank you.
Understood.
Okay. And then last item on the agenda is adjournment.
Make a motion.
Got a motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, good night. Happy New Year. Thanks, everyone.
Here.